It all started in 2021. It was at the end of my tutoring job. I was starting the second year of a master's degree, and I was a little bit lost, to be honest. I did not really know, where am I going from here? And then BTS entered, and things changed. It's just a start, the start. I actually got into BTS through my tutoring job and through a very strange twist and turn of events, to be completely honest. It makes me think that some things are fate, because if I had not taken this tutoring job during the pandemic times when my relationship was kind of falling apart, I would not have met BTS. The butterfly effect at its prime, honestly, because 1.5 years later, I'm at the end of my tutoring job, like last month of it, and I had one of my students who I was tutoring. She was in army, and she was already quite far along in her English studies journey, so she was translating English song lyrics into German as a practice, because my mother tongue is German and I tutor English. One of the songs I remember very distinctively, the one I remember most distinctively, is Dynamite. She translated Dynamite. She also translated Butter. And I feel like those are not necessarily two songs that really reflect positively on the lyricism that BTS generally has in their songs, in their Korean language songs, because Dynamite and Butter they're happy-go-lucky songs without too much depth. They're fun. I like them, but like the mastery of lyricism is not in them the way it is with 134340 or Microcosm or Spring Day or Magic Shot, and so forth and so forth. Tons and tons of BTS songs. I'm going off on a tangent, but that is one thing I remember. She'd been doing that all summer long because we had intense summer courses and she partook in some of them. In the last 2 weeks of my tutoring job, there were 1 or 2 sessions where I was tutoring just her, which was not common. Usually I had 2 to 4 students. Students were out sick or they were just taking a week of break. She had a presentation later on that year, and she wanted to make it about a book about somebody who had fled from North Korea. And she told me she had gotten into that and interested in Korea in general because of BTS, because of K-pop. And then we started talking about, of course, about how she could go about the presentation, but in the last 5 minutes or so, we talked about boy bands. I shared my One Direction and 5 Seconds of Summer experiences growing up with a boy band, and she shared her BTS experiences. Something about her talking about them, it reminded me of how I'd felt when I was a fan of One Direction and 5 Seconds of Summer. Once the tutoring job had already ended, beginning of October, I had a weekend where I was like, I don't really have anything to do yet. The university courses had just started, but it was nothing where we could do a lot yet. I just needed a little bit of new inspiration in music in general. So I was like, yeah, why don't I check them out? And I remember so clearly watching some of their videos, seeing them dance, seeing them perform, the beauty of their music videos, because even if you do not like BTS's music, watch Black Swan and tell me this is not one of the most beautiful music videos out there. I remember watching Black Swan and thinking, I wasn't so sure about the music yet, but partially that was because I hadn't gotten into the flow of K-pop yet. I hadn't never really heard a lot of it before. It was not popular, generally speaking, in Austria at that time. So I had to get into the flow of it. I got into it very quickly. It took me a few days and I already called myself ARMY by then. But the point where I was like, I'm not 100% sure about their music yet, but I will definitely be standing them for their dancing, was the Kinetic Manifesto film of On. At that point, I was like, okay, I'm in, we get to go, let's do this. That's how it started. I also remember watching Dynamite back then and being like, I'm starting to like their other stuff, but Dynamite, it took me a really, really, really long time to get into. Like, I was not a fan for a very, very long time. I like it now. I like it for its easy fun, for its choreography, for just it being what it is. But back then, I was not a fan. And I do remember that Dynamite was one of the first videos that I watched, and I was like, I was this close to not watching another video of them. And I'm glad that I did end up watching another one and another one and another one after that. And the one who hooked me at first, so my first bias was Jungkook. That took about 2 very intense months until I switched over to Tae. And then like a month later to Yoongi and then Jimin. And Yoongi, Jimin, this combination, those have been my biases for over 2 years now. I would say that JK is still kind of my bias wrecker, but Jimin and Yoongi, those are the ultimates. So that's how it started for me. I would say I probably called myself an ARMY within a week of discovering BTS. I know, very quickly. Probably even less than a week, like 2 days in, I was in. I was hooked. I wanted to know more. And the first album that I ordered was Love Yourself Tear. I remember that back then, there were no albums anywhere in any store that you could go to. You couldn't find them anywhere yet. That only really started in 2022, where I lived back then, where they started having K-pop albums in some stores, and then it expanded and more stores started carrying them. And now you can find the more popular groups, their albums, in a few different stores in Austria. Let's continue on from early 2022. So when my bias started being Yoongi, and when I started really diving deeper into the producing, the songwriting aspect that BTS themselves carry out a lot of. Yoongi was the one who inspired me to produce my own music. It was like he grabbed me by the shirt and he was like, I can produce. So why should you not be able to start doing that too? I didn't raise no weak ass witches. That's what it kind of felt like. No, it was much gentler. That feeling of, I can do it. I learned how to do it. I taught myself a lot how to do it. Why shouldn't you be able to do the same? The thing is, I have a music background too. I was studying a master's degree in music. I technically had good presets for starting to produce music. Now, 2 years later, I have an album out, I have a few singles out, my EP is coming out in a few weeks. I've come a long way, and a lot of it is thanks to Yoongi, and a lot of it is thanks to BTS in general. But yeah, 2022, I started producing my own music. And I do not think I would have pulled through with it to the degree that I did if it hadn't been for BTS and for Yoongi, and for me constantly feeling like Yoongi was watching me over the shoulder and being, yeah, it's good, keep going, keep practicing. That sounds silly, but you have that feeling of they would approve if they were present. And then, along with my producing journey, came the concerts they did. I partook in all the live streaming ones that they did. 2 ones in Seoul in March of 2022. Oh my goodness, that was a long time ago. And the one in Vegas in April of 2022. They were amazing. Seoul was a little more restrained and mannerly and orderly, partially because of the fans who were not allowed to cheer and stuff like that because of the pandemic. And it was such an experience. It was amazing. Vegas was a whole thing of its own. My mom has been asking me for 2 years, so what exactly were the Vegas concerts, or was the Vegas concert like? And I've been trying to find an appropriate word for it for 2 years, and I still have not found one. It was insane. You could see and you could feel that they were giving it their all. They were being a little bit dramatic. Maybe they were really giving it their all. They were being theatrical when it needed to be like that. Like, during the fake love Black Swan time. They were being powerful. It was on fire. It was absolutely on fire from the first moment to the last. Well, there was some time in between where it was like, but aside from that, aside from the almost crying, being a little bit sad, being a bit emotional, it was very on fire. And then came Festa. My first Festa as an ARMY, 2022. That was a disaster. I never actually watched the Festa dinner in full. I only saw the snippets of it on like TikTok and Instagram, and I probably will never watch the Festa. I refuse to do that. Yeah, that was difficult when they were like, we're kind of going on a break as BTS, but you know, like not a permanent break, but just a break for right now because things are to come. We all knew what was to come, like military. They had to enlist soon. And I'm sure at this point they already had it all planned out. They knew when who was going. It was difficult. That was a difficult time, I think personally, because I had been so invested in OT7 for the better part of a year. And suddenly that was taken away. Yes, we did get some OT7 content after that, but we didn't know that that would happen at that point yet. I actually wrote a song about this. It's called Purple. It's out on Spotify and everywhere, you know, everywhere you can stream music. It's also on YouTube. I wrote a song about that we would stick with BTS as ARMY. And that, you know, that's a forever thing. The Borahe, that's a forever thing. Even no matter what happens in the future, honestly. We can't predict any of that anyways. Why not just stay in the magic shop and enjoy every last drop of magic that we can get from it? So that was my first ever single that I released. At the end of 2022, it came out. I wrote it after the Festa. I would not have done that without BTS. It's my most streamed song. It's almost at 1,000. And I'm very happy that I put it out. And then came, of course, some of the solo things. Hobie at Lollapalooza. I watched that, and it was so good. He is an absolutely insane performer. And then came Busan. Oh, that was emotional when they sang like Spring Day and stuff. Watching this concert and watching how they behaved at this concert and how in the moments where they perhaps didn't think the camera was necessarily directly on them, you could see it in their eyes. It felt like to me. They had insane moments in this concert. Like Run BTS was mic drop. Like I have no words for Run BTS. You could see it in their eyes that this was the last time they were going to be together as a band for a very long time. And I wasn't wrong about it because then like 2 days later, 1 or 2 days, I don't remember, we got the notification from Big Hit that the enlistment would now start. I woke up that morning, like right around the time that it, or a short amount of time after it was posted, much earlier than I usually wake up. And I grabbed my phone. I knew something was up. It was like my ARMY senses were tingling. And I grabbed my phone and I saw it and I was like, my stomach's sinking. But at the same time, I was like, I've been expecting for this to happen for like half a year. It still hurts, but I was semi-prepared emotionally for it. Semi-prepared. And then Jin went to the military. And I was sad about that. It's still, even though it's been such a long time now, and Jin is almost back, still sometimes feels like, how the heck did we all get through these moments? Then came a phase of immense change for me after Jin had enlisted. I just graduated from university with my master's degree. I was about to start a new job. I moved to a different city. I moved to my first own apartment. It felt like BTS kind of accompanied me in all of that. Like, it made it more bearable. To be honest, moving to my first apartment and living on my own for the first time. I'd lived away from home before, but never alone. It was difficult for me, and I went through quite a phase where I had a lot more panic attacks. That's something I've been struggling with for a decade now. But it's a bit of an up and down and on and off thing. And it was a really difficult time back then for me. Right around the time when Jimin's album dropped, Jimin's EP. I always say the wrong word. And honestly, Face was so much help. Jimin's music in general has been so much help for me to cope with my panic attacks. And I hadn't noticed until that point how much his voice soothes me. Like, I just need to listen to his songs on repeat. So I listened to Face hundreds of times in 2023. I listened to Serendipity nearly 300 times in that 1 year. It was my most listened to song in 2023 because it soothes me so much. Music has a very healing factor to it for me. Then after Face came D-Day. Yoongi really gave us a gem with that one. I watched every single live stream concerts. It was 5, I think, 4 or 5. I watched all of them, and it was so good. He is insane on a stage alone. I never really noticed that before. I remember the final concert of the D-Day tour. Gosh, that was so emotional. So emotional. I cried along with Yoongi too when he cried. It was so sad. So I feel like it forged an even deeper connection between Army and Yoongi. I love how vulnerable he let himself be on that stage on that last day. During that time when D-Day came out, I started doing covers on YouTube. I already had a YouTube channel at that point, my music YouTube channel, the one you're seeing this on right now. And I started doing covers, almost solely BTS, but occasionally other covers. And I feel like I started gaining a little bit of an audience on here that is related to BTS, because I do post a lot of BTS content on here and on TikTok especially. I felt like I was slowly finding my people, or starting to find my people on YouTube. I feel like there are still a lot of ARMY that I could potentially pull with my content, but let's see. Let's see how that goes in the future. My most watched cover on YouTube is a BTS song. I have done some other songs by now, like a little bit of 5 Seconds of Summer, a little bit of Taylor Swift, a little bit of other songs here and there that I've been asked to do. My most watched one to this day is still Angel Part 2, the one that Jimin did for the Fast and Furious 10? I don't remember which number it was, but it was around there. My favorite cover, aside from that I did of BTS, is probably my Standing Next to You cover. I really love doing that. It's so fun. It didn't get a lot of views, but it was still worth doing it just for the fun of it. I've covered quite a few of their solo songs by now, but I think Standing Next to You is still the favorite one that I did. And then in the process of 2023, after they'd all delivered their individual solos, all beautiful in their very own ways, the rest of BTS left for the military. I was very sad about that when every single one left. First Toby, then Yoongi, then the 4 youngest. But I guess I learned to cope with it. I had so much other stuff to focus on, and without that, I think it would have been a lot more difficult. I did my best to focus on my music. I have been trying to put out a new single every other month to grow my following a little bit. I've been working very hard on TikTok, especially to gain a very dedicated ARMY community, like a community that would be willing to interact, that goes live with me, that chats with me. They know me. They know me better than anyone on any other platform. And here we are now. I am a singer, songwriter, and producer. I am following my dream, inspired by BTS. They were once small artists with not a very big following, with not a lot of support, who made it all the way to the top and beyond. I'm at the point where I am also still that small artist 2 years into producing my own music. I don't have a large following yet. I have not had any of my songs go viral, but I hope that someday I will have a dedicated fan base and community the way that BTS does. Until then, maybe I'm borrowing ARMY just a little bit for that. Relying very heavily on ARMY. I do admit to that. By the way, in the process of me becoming Army and me diving deeper and deeper, I've also managed to make my mom Army. I'm very happy about that because now I can share these kinds of things with her, and we trade little cute BTS videos on Instagram and sometimes on TikTok. It's very fun. I appreciate that side of being Army too. And I also appreciate that I've met so many Army across the world. So many Army of such different ages, backgrounds, nationalities, religions, and so forth. It's a blessing. I have made some Army friends and acquaintances in the process, and that's so beautiful. I love that. That's definitely one of the plus sides of being in such a dedicated, mostly sweet and gentle fandom. You can meet some very nice people there. We're not going to talk about the not so nice people. They don't get anything to say here today. As all of you probably too care about BTS, I am waiting for their return. It's like 2 months until Jin returns now. It's one end when he returns. It's the end of the phase where they're all leaving. He begins the start of a new phase, the phase where one after the other they will be returning from the military. And I'm really, really happy about that. I really, really, really look forward to the day when they will be reunited as BTS. I hope that they will do music again as BTS because they make incredible music as a septet. But I understand that we don't know what will be. For the most part, they know what will be. There's also this certain factor of unpredictability always there. So, independently of what they do once they return, I hope they're happy. I hope they have a good time. I hope they get to rest. I hope they will, if they want to, reconnect with Army, do some lives. I would love that. And I will honestly be grateful for whatever they give, because over the process of the last 3 years, they have given me back. What else could I do but support them after that?